Okay, so get this. We've got some pasted text podcast excerpts on deck all about AdWords campaign analysis. Think of it like getting a sneak peek at the marketing playbook.
Yeah, and what's really cool about this source is it's not just about like the tech stuff, you know.
Yeah.
It's about getting inside the head of a marketer who's killing it with data.
That's actually a really good point because one of the first things that jumped out at me was this whole thing about daily habits, the daily data ritual, as they call it.
It's such a simple idea,
Yeah.
but taking that 15, 30 minutes every single day to just like connect with your AdWords campaigns, you know?
Oh, I'll be honest. I used to think that was overkill. Like monthly reports. Isn't that enough for most businesses?
See, that's where it gets interesting. This daily ritual,
Mm-hmm.
it's not about drowning in spreadsheets.
Hmm.
It's about building that agility
Right.
so you can adapt to changes way faster than your competition.
So while they're waiting for that big end of month report, we're already tweaking bids, adjusting campaigns.
Exactly. You're spotting those trends early, you're seeing what's working, what's not, and you're making those small but crucial moves that add up to big results.
Okay, so it's less about obsessing over every single number every day, and more about developing that gut feeling for your campaigns, almost like you said, that agility.
And the cool thing is,
Yeah.
they actually give a real-world example of this in action. This company, RentTrack, they're in online rent payments, helping people build credit. Really tough market.
Yeah, I can imagine every little edge counts in that space.
Exactly. And they found that just by making these small tweaks
Yeah.
based on what their daily data was telling them, they could really move the needle. It wasn't about these big overhauls or anything, just those consistent data-informed adjustments.
I love that proof that sometimes the smallest changes can have the biggest impact. Now, speaking of seeing things from different angles, the source also talked about the importance of getting both a bird's eye view and zooming in on the details. How do we balance those two perspectives?
It's like being a detective almost.
Or-
You gotta piece together clues from all these different levels to crack the case of your campaign performance.
Right.
So you start with that broad overview. Are you hitting your overall goals? How are your campaigns doing overall? That kind of thing.
So you're starting with the big picture metrics first.
Right. But then let's say you notice your clicks are down overall. Instead of panicking, you got to dig deeper. Are clicks down across the board? Or is it just one specific campaign? Or maybe even a certain keyword?
So it's like, hold on, my clicks are only down for this campaign targeting this specific demographic?
Exactly. And then it gets fun. Suddenly you're not just staring at numbers. You're seeing how they all connect. Like
Yeah.
the source talks about comparing click performance to your impressions over time. Let's say your clicks are going up, but your impressions are staying the same. What do they tell you?
Assuming those impressions are coming from the right people, it sounds like your ads are just becoming more clickable, maybe the copy's resonating better, or your targeting's gotten sharper.
It's not enough to just see the numbers. You got to understand the why behind them. Why are clicks up? Why are conversions down? That's where the real insights are. And that's how you turn data into action.
And that's how we turn data from this big, scary monster into a powerful tool.
Right, 100%. But even when you're laser focused on those individual data points, you can't lose sight of how they all fit together. That's why the source talks about analyzing your data at the ad group level.
Okay, let's talk about that ad groups. Why is that level of analysis so important? What kind of insights can we glean from that?
Think of it this way. You're trying to find that sweet spot where your creatives are super compelling and you're reaching the perfect audience at the same time. It's like imagine you come across an ad that has an 18.18% click-through rate.
18%. Are you serious? Most people would kill for numbers like that.
Right. But hold on. What if I told you that amazing click-through rate was based on only 11 impressions?
Oh. Well, that changes things. Suddenly, it doesn't seem quite as impressive.
See, that's what I mean about vanity metrics. They sound amazing on paper, but they don't always tell the whole story. Analyzing your data at the ad group level helps you cut through all that noise and figure out what's really driving performance.
So instead of chasing after those shiny vanity metrics, we need to go deeper, understand what's actually moving the needle for our business.
Right. And the source actually gives us even more tools to do that.
Yeah.
They talk about customizing your data view within AdWords, which I think is super cool.
Okay, let's talk customization. What kind of options are we talking about here?
So they highlight 4 main ways you can tailor your data view: columns, segments, filters, and graphs. Each one is like a different lens you can use to view your campaign data.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me the quick rundown. What does each one do?
Sure. So columns are like the building blocks of your data table. You can add or remove columns to display the specific metrics that are most important to you.
So if I'm laser focused on click-through rate and conversions, I can prioritize those in my view.
Exactly. It's all about cutting through the clutter and focusing on the data that aligns with your goals.
Love it. What about segments? What are those all about?
Segments are where things get really interesting. This is where you can really slice and dice your data based on specific criteria to uncover deeper insights and trends.
Okay, give me an example. How would you use segments to analyze campaign performance?
Let's say you want to see how your campaigns are performing on different devices. You could create a segment that shows you data for desktop users versus mobile users side by side.
And then you could compare those segments to see if there are any major discrepancies in performance.
Exactly. And that's where the real magic happens. Imagine you discover that your mobile conversions are way lower than desktop. That's a huge red flag. Something's off with your mobile experience.
Right. Maybe your landing pages aren't optimized for mobile or your forms are too clunky to fill out on a smaller screen.
Exactly. And without that segmented data, you might never have even realized there was a problem. You just see those low overall conversion rates and scratch your head.
That's such a good point. It's so easy to overlook those device-specific issues, but they can make a huge difference.
Huge. And that's just one example. You can segment your data by practically anything. Location, time of day, age groups, keywords. The possibilities are endless. It's about asking the right questions and then using segments to find those answers in your data.
This is blowing my mind. It's like having a secret weapon to unlock all these hidden patterns and really optimize your campaigns.
And get this, the source mentions, you can even download reports based on all these custom segments. So if you want to get even more granular, maybe do some offline analysis or build out your own dashboards, AdWords gives you the flexibility to do that.
Now we're talking. That's next level stuff. But for someone who's just getting started with all this, what's the key takeaway? What's the most important thing to remember?
I'd say it's this data by itself is meaningless. It's the insights we derive from that data that really matter. And to get those insights, we need a structured analytical approach.
So we need to build those good habits, ask the right questions, and then use these awesome tools AdWords gives us to uncover the answers.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, the more you do this, the easier it gets. It's like learning a new language. At first, it's all Greek to you. But with practice, it becomes second nature.
I love that analogy. It's like we're learning to speak data so we can understand our audience and our marketing on a whole new level.
Exactly. And speaking of understanding, we were talking about vanity metrics earlier. Those numbers that sound impressive but don't tell the whole story. Maybe we should give our listeners a few more examples of those just so they know what to watch out for.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think a lot of people probably fall into those traps without even realizing it.
Oh, for sure. It happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
One that comes to mind is website traffic. On the surface, a spike in website visits might seem like a good thing, right?
Right. More traffic.
Yeah.
More potential customers.
Right. But what if those visitors aren't actually doing anything once they're on your site? What if they're bouncing off after a few seconds or not engaging with your content? Suddenly that vanity metric of website traffic loses its luster.
So true. It's easy to get caught up in those top-level numbers. But we have to dig deeper, understand what those numbers really mean for our business.
And another one, social media followers. Having a massive following might seem impressive, but are those followers actually interested in what you're selling? Are they engaging with your content?
Are they clicking on your links? Are they converting into paying customers?
Exactly. If not, then that huge follower count might not be as valuable as it seems.
So it's all about looking beyond those vanity metrics and understanding what truly matters for our bottom line.
Right. And speaking of metrics that can be deceiving, let's talk about impressions for a second.
Oh yeah, impressions. That's another one that can be tricky.
Because impressions just tell you how many times your ad was shown. It doesn't tell you how many people actually clicked on it or took action. You could have a ton of impressions, but if nobody's clicking, it means your ad isn't resonating.
And that's where we circle back to the importance of analyzing our data at a more granular level.
Right.
If we're just looking at impressions in a vacuum, we might miss those crucial details about click-through rates and conversion rates.
100%. That's why it's so important to look at all these different data points in relation to each other.
Yeah.
It's like putting together a puzzle. Each piece by itself doesn't mean much, but when you put them all together, you get the full picture.
I love that analogy. And just like with a puzzle, sometimes the most satisfying part is that aha moment when everything finally clicks into place.
Totally. And speaking of clicking, something else that really stood out to me from the source was this idea of understanding the why behind click performance. It's not enough to just get people to click on our ads. We need to understand what's motivating them to click in the first place.
Right. What is it about our messaging, our imagery, or
Yeah,
our targeting that's resonating with them? Once we understand that, we can use those insights to improve all of our marketing efforts, not just our AdWords campaigns.
exactly. It's about connecting the dots between data and human behavior to create a more engaging and impactful customer experience.
Which brings me to something else I wanted to touch on. Remember how we were talking about segments earlier and how they can help us understand performance across different devices, locations, and demographics?
Yeah, it's like having X-ray vision into your audience.
Totally. Well, the source actually gives a really cool example of how this works in the real
Oh,
world.
yeah. Tell me more.
So they were looking at their data, and they noticed their ads were doing great on desktops, but their mobile conversions were, well, they were tanking.
Oh, see,
Yeah.
that's such a classic example. People just assume what works on one device will automatically work on another, but mobile users, they're a whole different beast.
Totally. And for this company, they realized their mobile landing pages were a mess, like super clunky and impossible to navigate on a phone. So people were clicking on the ads, but then crickets, no conversions, because the mobile experience was so bad.
Ugh, talk about leaving money on the table. But it just goes to show you segmentation. It can really save the day.
For real.
Yeah.
Imagine if they had just looked at their overall conversion rates without breaking it down by device. They would have thought their ads were just a total flop. But instead, they were able to pinpoint that one specific problem area and then bam, targeted improvements for a much better mobile experience.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the power of data. It's not just about the numbers themselves. It's about using those numbers to tell a story, understand the why, and then make smarter decisions and, create a better experience for your customers in the process.
Yes, the customer experience. That's really what it's all about, isn't it? At the end of the day, all this data stuff is cool, but if it's not translating into a better experience for the people we're trying to reach, then what are we even doing here?
Preaching to the choir. It's about using data as a bridge between our marketing and what our customers actually need and want. It's a more human-centered approach. Data-driven, but also empathetic.
Nicely put. So, for all our listeners out there who are feeling inspired to dive into their own AdWords data, what's the one piece of advice you would give them?
Don't be afraid to just jump in and get your hands dirty.
Experiment.
The digital marketing world changes so fast, and AdWords is no different. There are always going to be new things to learn, new tools to try, new challenges to tackle, so stay curious, stay agile, and most importantly, never stop testing and experimenting.
Love it. And remember, every little aha moment, every insight you uncover, it all adds up. It all makes you a smarter, more data-driven marketer.
You got it. And who knows, you might even discover a hidden talent for data analysis along the way.
There you have it. Data analysis. The new creative outlet. Okay, but seriously, thanks for taking this deep dive with us today. We hope you've learned some valuable stuff, and most importantly, that